Welcome in, everybody, to a little bit of an emergency bonus Wednesday night Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I got circles under my eyes. I got messy hair. I haven't shaven. I told producer Matt, take Wednesday off, get settled. Obviously, next week we're back in game week with the college football playoffs. So I said, take Wednesday off. Let's get some Christmas shopping done, all that good stuff. Yeah. And then Bill Belichick just moments ago officially accepted the head coaching job at North Carolina. Listen, we saw the reports earlier in the day. Adam Schefter just confirmed it moments ago. I'll read directly from Adam Schefter because I still could not believe it when I saw it. Adam Schefter tweeting out, let's see here, at what time? We have let's take a look here really quick here. Everybody come on in. Let's see here, 38 minutes ago from when I'm speaking right now. So this was at 5:23 Eastern time. Adam Schefter, official account, 11.3 million subscribers, tweets, Chapel Bill. Six-time Super Bowl winning head coach Bill Belichick is finalizing a deal to become the new head coach of North Carolina. Sources tell me, Pete Thamel and Chloe ESPN, which is obviously, what's his face there? I apologize. Chris Lowe off the top of my head. I couldn't remember his name. Belichick is going back to school where his father served as an assistant coach in the 1950s. So what I want to do, everybody come on in. We'll talk about it. We'll react to it. I am still in disbelief. If you listen to Wednesday's show, or Tuesday night show, I still felt like it was a play to get, interest from the NFL. But this is crazy. So everybody come on in because boy, oh boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Really quickly, before we get to the insanity that is Bill Belichick, just very quickly, we got to thank our partners. We got to thank our sponsors because guess what? In these trying, insane times where Bill Belichick is now a college football head coach, you know what I need to ease my tension and my anxiety with everything going on in the world of college sports right now? I need Collie Puffs. Okay, so Collie Puffs, they are a partner. They are a sponsor. Great snack. It's the holiday season. You're on the couch more. You got family coming over. You need something delicious but healthy. That's where Collie Puffs comes in. Family-owned business, not far from where I live. Buddy of mine named Joey started this business. He's just like you and I. He's sitting on the couch watching football. He's looking for something healthy to eat that isn't going to turn him into a total slob. And, well, he invented Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried. Healthy ingredients, avocado oil, no grease. This is the alternative to all the crap in your grocery aisle, okay? The Fritos, the Doritos, the whatever. But here's the thing. Just because it's healthy doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. Collie Puffs are delicious, but they are also healthy. By the way, I literally just went to the store and got some. I should have brought them to the frame here to show you in person just how good these things are. But again, Collie Puffs, baked, not fried. And here's the great part. You can try them out for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. Go to colliepuffs.com. You can also go on Amazon.com. They are available. So if you order there, you're ordering stuff for the holidays, gifts for your friends, gifts for your family, gifts for your wife, gift for your husband, whatever it is, throw some Collie Puffs in the cart. You will enjoy them. Tell them Torres sent you. Yeah, we're talking Collie Puffs. With that said, man, it is just insanity. I mean, what else is there to say? There's no more time to waste. So let's get to the only topic of the day. And the topic of the day, as I just said, as of 5:23 Eastern time, Bill Belichick, according to Adam Schefter, has agreed to become the North Carolina football head coach. And we've talked about it a lot over the last couple of days. But this, to me, is as big of a shocker as pretty much anything that I can essentially ever remember, okay? We hear a week ago, we hear 10 days ago, whatever it is, we hear, oh my goodness, Bill Belichick might actually take this, he's speaking with North Carolina and we think it's a ploy and we don't think it's legit and there's no way he's going to actually do it. And sure enough, he agreed to a deal. Now, what I will say is as time went on, it obviously got increasingly more likely that he could be interested in this job, but I'll just be real. I just did not think that this was going to be a reality for Bill Belichick, but he is now the head coach of North Carolina, and I want to go into the positives, also the negatives. I do think it is being a little bit misrepresented, and we will discuss it here in just one second. I do got to tweet something out really quick, so forgive me. Bill Belichick going to North Carolina. Okay. All right. So, all right. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Let's go ahead and talk about it. I mean, this is so stunning on so many levels. I just cannot believe that this actually happened. Let me say this. Okay. So the positives of this, I think the positive is it's great content, right? I mean, listen, I'm in the content business. I feel like I am in the entertainment business. My job is to entertain. Sports is the vehicle in which I choose to entertain. There is nothing more interesting. There is nothing more unique than Bill Belichick, 6-time Super Bowl champion, going to college, and not only going to college. Like, I've heard this point made a few different times over the course of the last couple of days. It's not like he's going to Ohio State. It's not like he's going to Texas. He's going to North Carolina. But let me also just say this, and I've seen all the stuff about he's going to get this much in NIL. Well, guess what? Everybody's getting money in NIL because of rev share coming up. He's getting this much in this. He's getting this much in that. Let's just dive into the core principle and the core question. Will it work? And I'll be transparent. I'm not trying to be negative Nancy here on a Wednesday night when we want to talk about one of the wildest things that we have seen in college football in a while. But let me just say, I do kind of have my questions if it's going to work. And if you asked me to make a bet on if it's going to work, I'll be honest, I really don't think it's going to. And let me explain why, okay? So what does Bill Belichick do better than anybody else? What makes Bill Belichick, the, 6-time Super Bowl champion as a head coach, twice as an assistant? What makes Bill Belichick is that he's one of the greatest defensive minds that has ever lived, and he's one of the greatest scheme guys that has ever lived, okay? That's all well and good. But here's the thing. In college, that stuff, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's not as important as recruiting. It's not as important as getting players in your building. Remember, and this is the number one thing that I don't think enough people are really talking about with Bill Belichick. It is that the NCAA puts limits on how much time you can spend with your players, practice time, film room time, whatever. And I know that, we live in kind of this post-NCAA world where, what are really the rules? Who really knows all that good stuff? But at the same time, there are still rules, and you cannot be in that building with those guys from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's what made Bill Belichick in the NFL. You can't do that in college. And it's not because players are soft. It's because the rules literally don't allow you to. And so to me, you can't spend all day with them. There's a limit to the number of hours, and it really just comes down to the players. And let's talk about recruiting for a second, because it's the big conversation. I see everybody saying, well, it's a new era of college football and you don't really have to recruit that hard. No. It's different. I would argue in some ways recruiting is actually harder right now than it was even 5 years ago. Why is that? Because 5 years ago, first of all, you only really had to focus on filling those 25 scholarships for guys that were coming up in the senior class of high school. Now, you would obviously, start to learn the younger classes a year or two ahead. So we just signed the 2025 class. You'd obviously already be immersed in 2026 and beyond. But now you got to be recruiting the 25s, the 26s. You got to have an early heads up on the 27s. But also you have this crazy thing called the transfer portal, okay? And I don't think until you're in it, you have a full understanding of just how crazy it is, just how wild it is, just how unregulated it is, and just how much things can change in a second, okay? First off, you're just going to spend way more time recruiting than you think, and you can say that you're not, and you can say, well, Deion Sanders doesn't take home visits, and Deion Sanders does it all from campus. Yeah, Deion Sanders also, when you get to campus with Deion Sanders, with Coach Prime, he's going to close you because he's dynamic, he's energetic, he's interesting. Belichick doesn't have that personality. And so when you look at Bill Belichick, he's going to spend all day on Zooms, and he's going to spend all day convincing kids to come to school, and he's going to put on his sales hat, and he's going to be charming, and he's going to be interesting, and he's going to be entertaining. I just don't buy it. One, I don't buy that he has the personality. I don't think he's going to have the interest after a very short amount of time. And then three, the portal is crazy, okay? And listen, if you don't know people who coach in college, ask your favorite reporter, tweet at them. and say, what is it like? What's the craziest story you've heard? Because I've heard a million stories of a kid commits, a kid tells a coach he's coming, a kid puts out a graphic from Hayes Fawcett or Joe Tipton or whatever, and then 24 hours later, they're going somewhere else. I mean, I could tell you, I've talked to half a dozen coaches in the last month talking about a player in high school and in the portal and whatever that literally gave a verbal commitment to the school. And then within a day, a week, or whatever, we're going somewhere else. And so that is the part. People tell me, oh, it's so similar to the NFL right now. No, it's not. Because in the NFL, players have these things called contracts, and they're multiple years. And every player isn't a free agent every season. And so you have the portal element of it. But I think what you also forget, you have to re-recruit your roster. Imagine if every single offseason in the NFL, Tom Brady was a free agent and Bill Belichick had to go in to meet with him and explain why we want you back and we need you back and this is what we're going to do and we're going to give you this much of a raise and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And he had to do that with basically every player. And I know it's a little bit hyperbolic to say that every coach meets with all 85 guys and da-da-da-da, but it's not that hyperbolic. You have to not only recruit high school players, you not only have to recruit the portal, but the part that I don't think you can understand until you're in the trenches is that you have to re-recruit your players. And so a player comes to you at the end of the season and says, Coach, I had a great time, but this school's offering me, you're giving me 400, they're offering me 800. Can you match it? If not, I'm out. Those conversations are happening right now. I promise you that conversation has happened at probably just about every school in America at some point this week. And it could be, it's not just the G5s with players moving up. There's guys at Ohio State right now that aren't playing, that fill in the blank school is offering them to double their salary to come here and you can actually play. And so there's the re-recruiting element of it, which I just don't think until you fully realize. And then again, there's no contracts. So a guy could say, I'm coming back. And then somebody offers him something 2 days before the portal closes. And all of a sudden the kid's out. And so I'm not trying to belabor the point. I just think it's a lot more complicated than people than people realize. I just don't think you can fully understand how crazy it is until you are in the trenches. Think about, by the way, I talked about the fact that there's not unlimited practice time. I talked about all the craziness in the portal, all the craziness with NIL. By the way, unregulated. So again, a kid, you could have verbally said, hey, listen, you're making $250K. We'll make sure you get to 400 for next season. Well, guess what? You agree to it. You move on to the next thing. And then 5 days later, the kid could come into your office and say, Coach, you got me to 500, but somebody's ready to get me to 800 and I need an answer today or I'm leaving. That has happened. That has happened to every coach that you know. Beyond that, and I think this is an important part as well, and I want to talk about the fact that he's taking this job, but here's the other thing that I don't think enough people are talking about. What is actually his motivation? And the one thing I'll say, listen, I get that if you're Bill Belichick and you have, obviously, had the levels of success that you have had, I get that there's a little bit of arrogance to you, but doesn't it feel like these last couple years, the reasons that Bill Belichick appears to be coaching, appears to be involved in football, are they the best reasons? Are they the best reasons, right? And we talked about this on, Tuesday afternoon show. I said point blank, I said, look, it appeared, first of all, back to the NFL for half a second. And I think there's another conversation that it's kind of sad that he can't get an NFL head coaching job, because to me, this I do think speaks to, he probably doesn't feel great about the opportunity for him to get another NFL head coaching job this offseason. We've talked about him in the Cowboys. We've talked about him in whoever, the Jets, if the Giants opened up. And I don't think he feels like he can get any of them, or maybe he just doesn't feel like he wants to work for a crazy owner like Woody Johnson, whatever. But what I would say about that, what have been his motivations the last couple years? In New England, what do we keep hearing? He wants to break Don Shula's record. Well, that's a great reason to coach, history, whatever. But are you still about winning games at the highest level? Or are you about winning enough to have your name in the record books and do things your way? Beyond that, let me also say this, and I talked about this on Tuesday's show a lot, is the idea that why is he taking this job? Like, why is Bill Belichick ultimately taking this job? Is it because he wants to get back into coaching? Let me even backtrack. And I said this on Tuesday's show. I said, what did I say? I said, every other coach that's taking a job this cycle, Scott Frost at UCF, Barry Odom at Purdue, there's not very many jobs open, but why are they taking the job? It is to ultimately build a legacy and compete at the highest level and hopefully win a national championship. Now, is Scott Frost ever going to win a national championship at UCF? Probably not. Is Barry Odom going to win one at Purdue? Probably not. But that's the ultimate end game. What is Bill Belichick's ultimate end game here? It's to get his son in the door and to get his son the head coaching job. And so if your end game isn't to win at the highest level, to build a legacy because your legacy is already built, and your only end game is to set up your son in his coaching future, I'm sorry, that's not a reason to me to take a job. And that's not a reason to me to hire Bill Belichick, even with those 6 rings. And I just go back to what I've said. College football is so much different than people on the outside think. It's so much harder than people realize. Let me also say this really quick. And then there's a few comments in here. This comment about the 24-year-old girlfriend. Drop your comments in because I do want to hear from you guys and hear your thoughts. Drop some comments. We'll get to them in a minute. But like, I just bring it up because when I look at Bill Belichick, the other variable besides the recruiting, besides the this, besides the that, all of the different things that are going on, can we stop with he's going to revolutionize strength and conditioning. He's going to revolutionize the meal prep and nutrition. Bro, stop. There's nothing that Bill Belichick is, and that's where I think, first of all, there's nothing Bill Belichick is going to do that is any different in meal prep and training and strength and conditioning than what Alabama's doing, than what LSU's doing, than what Ohio State's doing, than what Michigan is doing. That, I think, is part of the arrogance and part of the lack of understanding of what it actually takes to compete at the highest level in college football. How many people have we seen come to college sports thinking, oh, I know everything and I'm from the pros and I'm going to out X's and O everybody? Jerry Stackhouse at Vandy, Mike Woodson at Indiana, Chris Mullen at St. John's, Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. You go on and on down. All these guys come in thinking they have all the answers, and they realize this is so much more complicated and so much more nuanced than we realize. And so to me, I just don't think it's going to work. I'm not saying that I could definitively say that I would not have hired Bill Belichick, because it's hard to not hire Bill Belichick when he wants your job. But I don't think that he fully understands what it's actually going to take to do this job at the highest level. So those are my immediate thoughts. And listen, again, when you're taking a job solely, when you're taking a job solely to pass it off to your son, I don't know. I don't love it, and I don't think it's going to work. Really quickly, let's get to some comments. I saw this one. His 24-year-old girlfriend that's finishing her degree will be proud. It might be legal, but 72 and 24 is creepy. I don't disagree. Jared says, can't believe out of everywhere he goes to Chapel Hill. How's that even a good job? Well, I will say, I don't think North Carolina is a terrible job. The ACC is wide open, state school, plenty of money. One thing that I will say, I believe that the football team actually is going to invest more than I think a lot of people realize. I think we've talked about it on the show. I think that's part of the reason Hubert Davis has had trouble recruiting in basketball. Is I think we all think that Carolina has these unlimited resources in basketball. And I think the administration has, over the last, probably 18 months, realized the future is in football. We have to heavily invest in football. Look at Indiana this year. Indiana reportedly spent $13 million on NIL, like top 15 or 10 or whatever. Excuse me. Top 15 or 10 in college football. And look at the results for Indiana. That tickled my throat. Give me a sec. And so I just bring it up because I do think Carolina is invested, and I do think I don't think it's a terrible job. I just don't think that Bill Belichick fully understands what he is going to get into. Let's see here. There was one more question. My throat is really scratchy right now. Forgive me. Let's see here. Questions. At the end of the day, Bill will never be able to recruit all of the top dogs, which means his life as a coach there has a ceiling. So I agree with that 100%. It's all about recruiting. And listen, I hear all this like, players that want to get to the NFL. Well, everybody wants to get to the NFL. If you're good enough to play in the NFL, that means you're also good enough to play at Ohio State. You're good enough to play at Alabama. You're good enough to play at Miami. You're good enough to play at wherever. And I don't know. Like I do think the 6 Super Bowl rings, it can't hurt, right? But I just don't know that I feel like it's enough, like in this NIL world, right? So let's just use an example from last year. And this is all hypothetical. I'm just using it as an example. But like Dylan Gabriel was in the portal, right? And Dylan Gabriel, probably if he's an NFL player, he's like a 6th round pick. He's kind of small, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like if Bill Belichick calls and then Oregon calls and Oregon's going to pay 3 times as much money for you, I don't care about the NFL. I don't care about all your 6 Super Bowl rings. I'm trying to get paid because this might be the biggest payday that I have left in college, in football, period. And so I keep saying it. I don't think until you're in the fire in college sports, you realize how crazy it is. I've talked to all these staffs, all these, you just don't understand how different it is, how tough it is. Now, Belichick's going to get players. He's going to get some, but like, I've just heard so many things about, well, I mean, in this era, he doesn't have to go on the road recruiting. In this era, he doesn't, it's like, it's so complicated. This is my prediction. I don't know what Carolina's roster looks like right now. I've heard Carolina fans say, and I do defend them on this, hey, our offense was really good. We just need better coaching on defense. And, I think the stat was they went 6-6, but if the defense had given up, 24 points a game instead of 35 or whatever, we would have been 9-3. So I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be 8-4 next year, 9-3, 7-5. But like, I don't think in 2 years we're talking about North Carolina as having a roster that can compete with Ohio State and Penn State and whatever. I just don't. And maybe I'm dead wrong, but I just don't think so. Really quickly, this is funny. It says, George says it won't work. I agree with George. This one cracked me up. My Dallas Cowboys must be a real dumpster fire if Bill wasn't interested. I don't know if Bill's not interested, or I don't know if the Cowboys aren't interested in, if the Cowboys just aren't interested. Listen, I do think the Cowboys conversation is really interesting, only because like the conversation that everybody has had about Jerry kind of doing the press conferences, like Jerry kind of being the face of the organization, that didn't fly with Bill Parcells. It didn't fly with Jimmy Johnson. It wouldn't fly with Bill Belichick. Kind of sort of agree with that sentiment and that thought process. So I don't disagree. I just don't know if the Cowboys are really that interested. Now, I think they're crazy. I think they should have, first of all, everybody knows my Cowboys take. I think they should have fired Mike McCarthy 3 years ago. I think they should have fired him after the first 49ers playoff loss. I certainly think they should have fired him after the Packers last year, but they didn't. But I can't believe that Mike McCarthy's not coming back next year and that Bill Belichick has chosen to go to college instead. This isn't a comment from our chat, but I like this from Barrett Sully. Acting like there is modeling a college program like the NFL is some kind of revolutionary plan is ridiculous and naive. Bingo. Stop pretending as if that you're going to do something that is so unique and so different than everybody else in college football. I'm sorry. Everybody's got great nutrition. Everybody's got great meal plans. Listen, there are stories like ask people that have coached in the NFL and college. They'll tell you like the facilities in college are better than the facilities in the NFL, because the facilities in college, remember, until 2 or 3 years ago, the best way to get players was by showing off the facilities. And we have this and we have that. NFL players don't care and NFL owners don't care. I think the Indianapolis Colts owner is like, we got to upgrade our facilities because the Jacksonville Jaguars have this. It's like, no, they don't care. And NFL players don't care either. They're like, I got a 10-year window to make as much money as I can. Pretty much whoever pays me the most is going to be that person. So let's get to some more questions here really quick before we get out of here. It won't work, George says. I agree. No word on Steve Belichick leaving Washington yet. I have to assume that's a done deal. I have to really assume that's a done deal. I can't imagine Bill taking this job if Steven wasn't guaranteed the head coaching job. I'll say this. You know who I think is an interesting name that's worth keeping an eye on? Is Josh McDaniels going to come with Belichick? Because Belichick's offenses have sort of been a disaster without Josh McDaniels. Now, you could say Josh McDaniels isn't a great college or a great NFL head coach. Josh McDaniels was a great assistant for Bill Belichick. Josh McDaniels, remember, his last year with Belichick, New England made the playoffs with Mac Jones as their quarterback. And so I look at that situation. I think that's as interesting. Now, maybe there was a falling out with Belichick because everybody thought Josh McDaniels was going to succeed him in New England. And then there was a while it was Stephen Belichick, then it ended up being Gerard Mayo. But I just bring it up because, like, part of it is also going to be who is his coordinator. So I'm still, I'll be real, I'm still sort of in shock with all of this. I really did think, even as of yesterday, that it was kind of a ploy. It was kind of a this, it was kind of a that, but it sure does look like it's happening. For people just joining us, listen, I don't, again, I think it's great for college football, but you just go back. What is college football in 2024? How many coaches have we heard say that coaching is the last thing that I get to do? How many coaches have we heard? Mark Stoops said it, 6 months ago? He said, all I do is go out and raise NIL money. Now, that's going to be helped a little bit with rev sharing in the next year or so, but it doesn't change the fact that you don't get to just spend 18 hours in a dark office watching film. You have to meet with boosters. You have to meet with donors. You have to meet with recruits. By the way, all day Saturday in the lead up to a game, you know what you're doing? You're meeting with recruits before. You're meeting with recruits after. You're having recruits over your house. I could keep going on and on. I just don't think he understands what he's getting into. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm wrong. But again, just think about what I just said. Recruits at your house. Saturday night after a big game, a noon kickoff. Then Sunday morning, you have them over for breakfast. It's like, that's not Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick wants to be in a dark room breaking down film. Bill Belichick wants to be on the practice field. Again, there are limits to how much you can practice. There are limits to how much you can legally have players in the building. Now, if they want to come in on their own, that's another deal, this and that. And then I just go back to the recruiting elements of it, of, all your players at the end of the year are going to come to you and say, they're going to come to you and say, like, coach, if you don't get, I'm making $250. If you don't give me $4, I'm out. What's Bill Belichick going to do? And you could say, oh, he's Belichick. He'll just tell him to kick rocks. You tell, 18 of your 25 best players to kick rocks. You don't have very much of a team. So I don't think I have much else to add. We'll get to a couple questions. We'll get out of here. I was supposed to chill today, man. I was supposed to do the whole, take the day off, get Christmas shopping done. That did not happen. I'm not so... Let's see what this is. Christian says, I'm not so sure he retires quickly so his son gets the job. This guy can't live without football, and it only took one season on TV to drive him insane. I bet he coaches until he physically can't anymore. That's actually a great counterpoint. That's a great counterpoint to me saying that Belichick is going to hand over the job to his son as quickly as possible. Now, what I would say, and I do think this is an interesting element of this, which is it possible, and I think this is something interesting if you're Carolina, I would be curious what the verbiage about the buyout is in his contract, because I think the opposite could be true as well, Christian. I think the opposite could be true in that, what happens if he does go 11-1 next year and some NFL team is like, holy crap, he's got more in the tank than I realized. He's evolved more than I've realized. He's more invested than I realized. Then what's going to happen? Then he's going to go back to the NFL. So I think I see what you're saying. But I think there's an interesting counter to that as well, is if he has too much success, he could be gone after a year or two. And I mean, again, he's 72, 73 years old. I just don't know how much time that he has left. And I keep saying it. I apologize. I just don't think he knows what he's getting into. The recruiting, the portal, the re-recruiting your roster, meeting with boosters. It's so much different than I think 99% of people realize. And until you've actually done it, you're not going to be able to focus on football. You're just not. And so I'm interested. And then the other thing too, and I know I said it earlier, but for people just joining us, and we'll kind of wrap on this, is the fact that I do think there is a degree of institutional arrogance. By the way, somebody says he's not going 11-1. I agree. I'm just using it as a hypothetical. But the point I'm trying to make is I think there's a degree of arrogance, which is, one, I'm going to, because he's going to say all the right things about how he's changed and he's evolved this 1 year. I don't buy that. He's the same dude. And I think that's part of it, right? He wasn't going to get the power that he wanted in the NFL. So I'm going to go to college where I have that power. What's the old saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And so the reasons he's taking the job, I don't think are the right reasons. He's taken the job because, again, he wants his son to get the job. He wants to get back into coaching. I think he thinks he's going to revolutionize everything, and he's just not. I don't know what else there is to say. Any last questions or comments before we get out of here? Listen, I'll say this. We obviously have a very intelligent pro college crowd. We don't talk a ton of pro sports on this show, although I watch the NFL like everybody else on Sundays. But I think the college crowd gets like, you guys and girls are on message boards. You hear from your coaches, you hear from your fellow fans, you hear from fellow boosters, some of you boosters yourselves. Like, it's just so different. And like even in the media, I hear people who cover the NFL like, oh, it's a new world. It's just like the NFL. No, it's not anything like the NFL. It's not anything like the NFL. I think that's it. Tell you what, I do think I'm going to get out of here. If you're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, make sure to do so. Cannot believe we are talking about Bill Belichick, NFL head coach. Tell you what, though, what we will do, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll have more reaction to this. We'll have more details. We recorded this, by the way, at 6:30 Eastern. So there was breaking time. There was breaking news, and there's going to be more information as stuff goes on. But if you're not subscribed to the show, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, by the way, now's a great time to subscribe on YouTube because we'll be talking about this again tomorrow. A lot to react to. Thank you for everybody tuning in. Make sure you're following on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. Make sure you're following on Instagram at Aaron Torres Pod as well, because we got more to talk about, and it's going to be fascinating. Shout out to Torrent Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Redick, you F-head, another coach who thought he had all the answers and he didn't. We'll be back reacting to this on Thursday, new episode of the Aaron